So John, on-demand versus on-premise. In the large enterprise space, what's the difference?
So that's a great question. And obviously a lot of the focus when you talk to people is the cost of deployment, the idea that you're going to pay a subscription fee instead of a license and maintenance, the fact that it's deployed rapidly and rather than going through a sort of formal package installation process. And I actually think that's pretty important. I think what's actually more important, the long-term bigger value that both the customers and the vendors frankly are going to gain from this is this idea of kind of a persistent relationship between the vendor and customer on improving the product. And this idea that you can go from an idea to a design to real working code in a period of a few months and actually try it out with your customers and let them see if it solved their business problem and what ways can you improve it, and actually iterate on that pretty quickly. And the fact that we're using agile development methodologies and every 4 weeks you have progress on working code that a customer can come in and validate and tell you if it really is solving their problem or not, I think is a tremendous advance. And frankly, both for the customer and for the vendor, because it was always frustrating as a software vendor to build software with all good intent to have it work well for the customer and involve them in early design process, but not get feedback in some cases for years about how well you'd actually solve that problem. And so I think one of the great advances in on-demand is this idea that you can work with customers on a much more persistent basis in very sort of incremental steps as you advance the functionality in the software and make sure that it actually works for them. Now, obviously one of the interesting sort of dimensions of on-demand software is the fact that we're deploying it as an independent solution, and often it has to work well with other solutions that they're deploying. And in the on-premise days, that gets solved by a systems integrator who tries to bring that all together kind of on-premise. But in the world of on-demand, the intent is that service works instantaneously. So then the question is, how do vendors work together when we're trying to solve a single customer problem in the cloud?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And in delivering on-demand solutions at SAP Business Objects for the last 4 years, one of the things that's become very exciting is how do you leverage the fact that you are in the cloud to provide scenarios and solutions that we were having huge difficulty providing in the past. So for instance, this complex environment where you need to share information, resources, and collaborate with different suppliers within a network is something that's very difficult to do today. And so these integration challenges of having applications talk to each other, whether those applications are in the cloud, talking to other applications in the cloud, or applications that are running on-premise that need to communicate with applications that are in the cloud, becomes a very interesting challenge. And I think that it's something that needs to be thought of in the design of the application rather than an afterthought in on-demand. As you mentioned, in the past, it's left to the system integrator. And today's on-demand world, you have to think about it in the context of the application. And so that is going to be, it is today a key challenge with software as a service or on-demand applications, but it's something that we definitely at SAP feel is going to be key to our strategy.
And I think that's why the ecosystem is as important during the design, because similar to building the application with one vendor, you have to think about the consumption of the service as part of the design process, which means we have to bring other partners into that process as well as customers.